Welcome once again, everybody, to Irish Sports Daily Power Hour. I'm your host, Mike Frank, here with my good buddy, Jamie Uyeyama. We're going to talk some Irish football and also some Irish recruiting, and we're going to answer your questions. We have a number of questions from ISD customers that we're going to get to, hopefully, at the end here. And, of course, we're talking playoff and all that good stuff. So be looking for that. Before we get going, I wanted to mention once again, it's a great time to sign up for Irish Sports Daily. You can go to the front page, click on the premium section, sign up today. Big week this week for Notre Dame, obviously. There's signing day happening on Wednesday. Notre Dame's expected to sign one of the very top classes in the entire country, and we don't really anticipate any drama in that, which will be nice. And then, of course, there's playoff selection, all that type of stuff. Hopefully, Jeremiah Love is going to be in New York. There's lots going on with Notre Dame football and recruiting, so great time to sign up. Also, wanted to mention our sponsor, which is ESQ Clothing, founded by ND alum Ge Wang and Chicago's go-to for best custom suits, shirts, and sport coats. As Notre Dame reloads for the season, now's the time to refresh your wardrobe and add the perfect suit, sport coat, tuxedo, or casual jacket for fall. ESQ Master Tailors combine next-level craftsmanship with the finest fabrics to deliver a fit that's built just for you. Now with showrooms in both downtown Chicago and Winnetka, book your custom fitting and step into confidence with Chicago's finest. Mention ISD at your appointment and receive 10% off your entire purchase. Once again, that's ESQclothing.com. And since Black Friday is over, the great special that Ge Wang had for Irish Sports Daily customers is no longer available. But hopefully everybody cashed in on that and got all your bamboo shirts and all the great things that they had for sale on there for 49% off. All right. Yama, we were hoping for a good performance, and to be honest, they needed a good performance because nothing, literally nothing went Notre Dame's way on Saturday. Pretty much nothing, anyway. You were hoping for a few upsets. You were hoping for some things to happen, and of course, they just didn't happen. So it was very important for Notre Dame to come out and play well. And I mean, really, for pretty much 3 quarters, you couldn't play really any better than I think Notre Dame did on Saturday. And I think it just goes to show how dialed in Marcus Freeman has his culture right now. There are so many teams that just aren't, I wouldn't say, playing that well right now. I don't see a lot of great teams out there. And the SEC, I really don't see any great team in the SEC. I see a lot of good ones, but I don't see a lot of great teams. And they all had the same pressure that Notre Dame did. Play well. You got to play well, keep your slot, keep the home game, all that type of thing. And because of the way the games ended, there's a lot of I guess anxiety amongst Notre Dame fans right now of, could we be left out? Of course, if Alabama were to beat Georgia, what does that mean? If BYU were to beat Texas Tech, what does that mean? There's other things that can happen in championship games, but I mean, I think call me crazy, Jimmy, but I think the playoff committee has kind of made up their mind about Notre Dame. They've had opportunities to drop them. There's been lots of arguments about why Notre Dame shouldn't be in here. And every week it's the same thing. And it's because they see what I see. This is a good football team, man. They're a good football team. And guess what? They're going to get healthier too. It sucks that there's some guys out. Look, would it be nice to have KVA? Heck yeah. But I tell you what, if Notre Dame had KVA, I'd be hard pressed to say that there's a team that is going to absolutely beat Notre Dame out of 1 through 12. If Notre Dame had KVA, that still may be the case because you're going to get Rubio back, you're going to get Shrouth back, you're going to get Tay Johnson back. This team's going to be healthier, and just
Jade
judging
Greathouse.
by the last, Jaden Greathouse, and just by judging by the last few performances, Notre Dame was under the microscope, and you just can't play better than they're playing right now. You just can't, is the second half, the fourth quarter, did he take his foot off the gas too much? I don't think that matters, because anybody who's watching that game is just going to look at the first half and just see Notre Dame. It just wasn't even close. I mean, they could have called any play and it was going to work. That's how dominant Notre Dame was. And so to me, um, I I know why people are stressed. I get why people are stressed, but I think that the college football playoff committee sees what we see, and this is a very good football team. Your thoughts here, Jamie?
Yeah, and I think anyone who watched that game knows that Notre Dame was super vanilla in that game.
Oh
Like
yeah,
outside of the fake punt, which was obviously a bold call. Like, and that's another thing where you have to say Marcus Freeman, like, I mean, finger on the pulse right there, like because that was the thing that ended the game right there. At that
mm,
moment, it was 21-0, and I mean that was there was no way Stanford knew it was over at that point. I mean, you could even tell by the way that Frank Reich was coaching, was like, kicking field goals on 4th and 4 at the 26 later on. Like they just were just playing out the string basically. Yeah, I think you're up 35-3 at half. It's like 42 to 6 to start the fourth quarter. And I know there were some starters still in the game at the beginning, but most of them were not playing. And
yeah,
it was also 1:30 in the morning Eastern time for a lot of those guys. So I didn't think it was one of these things. It was hilarious to me actually that the commentators were saying that, Notre Dame's really just trying here. I'm like, have you looked who's playing in the game right now? It's
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
like come on here. Um, it definitely was not the same as Mario Cristobal getting Carson Beck to throw a bomb, with 30 seconds left in the game for the second game in a row to do that.
yeah,
And I get it. You know what? Miami has to play like that because they're behind. And to your point too, Notre Dame doesn't have to play like that because they already were ahead. Like when they were like I went back and watched that Stanford Miami game, Mike, last week, and that game was 7-7 with 2 minutes left in the third quarter.
yeah,
Like, I know that Miami pulled away and kicked their butt at the end, but it was like it was a game. Like it was a bad game for anyone. If you watch that game, if people from the committee watched that game and you watched Notre Dame's game against them, you're not comparing. You don't look at the score. Like there's a difference with looking at the box score and you actually watch the film of what actually
mm,
happened, right? And I think that's the thing is like if you watch the film, you know that Notre Dame kind of did exactly what they wanted to do. They took care of business. I thought everything was like, clinical. Like I saw some people like criticizing like CJ Carr's performance or whatever. I was like, what are we talking about here? Like I just thought like they pretty much did whatever they wanted to do. They were, like close to 70% on third down and fourth down. They converted up. One of the things that Stanford was great at this year, they're 13th in the country in red zone touchdown percentage against. They've had stopped pretty much everybody in the red zone, and they didn't stop Notre Dame once. And that was, I mean, you would say that was Notre Dame's Achilles heel, like for the second half of the year, was being able to punch it in and those things. And I thought, like, Notre Dame bullied them in a lot of ways. And also, Mike Denbrock made a lot of really good calls and stuff in those
yeah,
situations too. Um, I just thought they did exactly what they needed to do, and all the way that they have talked about them before. And I know I'm going to do a piece this week on the metrics, or it might be for Six Thoughts because I know we got signing day coming up on Wednesday, but like I'll go into the metrics that the college football playoff committee uses, but the ones that are publicly available that I've seen, right, that in terms of what matters, what they have looked at, what matters, so like points per play, yards per point, Notre Dame is number 2 in in the nation in those metrics. There's only like 4 other teams that are in the top 15 there, and they're the highest out of all the teams. So they have performed the best. They throw that graphic up about who's performed the best, they're higher than everybody when you compare them. And then their defense, they're like 11th. They're 9th and 11th in those metrics. And when you compare them to everybody else, yeah, there's some of these teams that are up there too, but they're like right there with those teams defensively, and they're above them offensively. So you just and you look at all these things like comparative like yards and examining the how much they beat a team compared to what their average score was, that average the score differential. They're as good as anybody. And it's just that just backs up what we've seen on the field. They kicked the crap out of everybody, pretty much, Mike. Boston College was the only game that was like a bit of a snoozer. That was it.
Yeah, I mean, they've been very, very consistent throughout since the Texas A&M game. Defense has gotten consistently better, even though they've suffered some pretty drastic injuries and critical injuries, and they've been able to overcome them and plug people in and still play at a very high level. So I'm very encouraged with where Notre Dame is. I think they'll get in. Is it going to be an ideal situation as far as where they're slotted, who they have to play? No. I doubt it will be, and it could be you end up having to, if you win that first game, you have to play Ohio State. But guess what? I'd probably rather play Ohio State second than I would for the national championship. I probably would, because I think that's the type of team that will, if they have that opportunity and they know they have that opportunity, they have the skill talent to raise above where they are probably more than anybody else, because I think that they're probably the most physically talented team that's out there. That doesn't mean that they're the best team. I think that physically, when you look at a lot of their players, they're pretty good, but I don't think it's as bad as it was last year. Last year, They had even more, so I really think it's going to be a competitive situation. It's probably going to come down to, guess what? The things that Notre Dame does well: protect the football and take it away. And they've done a great job of that all year. And so, not beating yourself and stuff like that. It's going to be exciting to watch, but I'm just as optimistic as I ever am. And a lot of these people are going to criticize Notre Dame for whether they should belong or this and that. I'm sorry, man. I've watched the SEC, Jamie. There's not a good team in the SEC. There really isn't. I mean, Georgia's okay, pretty good. I mean, to be honest, Ole Miss might have been the best team in the end. I thought they played the best last weekend. But now that is probably all going to be thrown out the window because of Lane Kiffin taking the job. And I don't want to get into all that. Who really cares? It's LSU's problem. It's Ole Miss's problem. Notre Dame's got their coach, and so let's focus on that. But I'm not overly concerned. I'm not, and maybe I should be. But I just think that Notre Dame passes the eye test as well as literally anybody. I think they're playing as well as anybody in the country right now. To me, I think the four best teams are Ohio State, Indiana, Notre Dame, and Oregon. That's my thoughts on it. Maybe Texas Tech. We don't know enough about them yet at this point because they just don't play anybody.
Haven't played anybody, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, wait till you play somebody, then we'll have a better understanding of how good they are. The defense is good. Don't get me wrong. I mean, and they put a big number up on West Virginia when they had to. They knew that they needed to play well too, and so give that team credit. They're starting to click and play well at the same time. But to me, I think that those are the best teams, and I think one of the SEC teams is pretty good. Will probably arise if they play well. They'll probably be okay, but I just don't see a lot of great teams. And while Notre Dame has their flaws, I think their flaws are not any more severe than anywhere else. And I think Notre Dame also, it's probably the best combination of run pass out of anybody that's out there. A lot of teams, like I watched in Oregon this past week, couldn't run at all, really couldn't run at all against Washington. And Washington's not a good, you know what I mean? So you just watch, and like Ohio State, I think that they're a pretty good running team, but I don't think their offensive line is as good as it was last year at this time. But, we'll see. I mean, they certainly have some players. I know for a fact neither of their running backs are as good as the two they had last year. There's no doubt about that. Not even close. And I think Sayan's a good player. Don't get me wrong. He's a good player. But when has Sayan been pressured? I want to see what happens when he's pressured. Somebody coming hard after him. That's when you find out. We know that about CJ Carr because he's had to deal with it. Not as much lately, but he has had to deal with it. But with Sayan, he just hasn't had to have the kind of pressure. So we'll just have to see how it all unfolds and go from there. Back to the game. First of all, I wanted to applaud you on your commentary today about how Anthony Knapp doesn't get enough credit on this offensive line. And I'm sorry, man. This guy's a damn good run blocker. I mean, everybody knows me. I love Zach Martin, and I think he was the best run blocking left tackle that they've had in a long time. He was just a dominant left tackle run blocker. Knapp's not far behind him. He really isn't as a run blocker. Can he improve a little bit of pass? But he's improved. Now, can he do that against Messidor? We'll have to see. And will they give him some help? We got to hope so if that ever becomes the situation. But, I think with Knapp, I think he's probably not getting the credit he deserves. But also, I think Notre Dame's offensive line did a good job in this game. They really did. I thought this was one of their best performances, certainly as of late. I was very impressed. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought they played really well just across the board. And I mean, yeah, obviously they're playing against Stanford. It's not like the greatest front there, but no, Stanford has played the run really well, and they ran the ball on Stanford. Like at the beginning of the game, they came out and just ran it down Stanford's throat pretty much. Like Anthony Knapp is, I guess, because, last year, obviously he was a true freshman, starting there, and he had a lot of growing pains, especially in pass pro. Right. And I think whenever that's like the first impression of somebody, people kind of get that. And if you look at, say, like, Martin, for example, Mike, when he came in, and Martin was a redshirt freshman, not a true freshman like Knapp, Martin was the rare guy that when he came in, it looked good right away, like pretty much everything. Yeah. And obviously he got better, but very few times where you were like, man, Zach Martin's overwhelmed. Like he was steady and just keep getting better the whole time. And I think Anthony Knapp has improved tremendously in pass pro, like tremendously.
Yes.
And he is a dynamite run blocker. And when Billy Schrauth gets back and those two are working together,
it's going to be beautiful.
There's not too many duos.
It was beautiful right before he got hurt. It was beautiful. Yeah. Oh, they were killing people.
Go and watch that USC film, right? Like,
man, they just absolutely destroyed people.
And I think, you know what? And Sullivan Absher's played well. Like he's done well in it. But obviously, there's a big gap between him and Billy Schrauth. And so getting Schrauth back, I don't think, if you don't know the team and you don't follow the team, maybe if you just throw on the film, you might think, okay, like this is what Notre Dame's ceiling is it changes when Schrauth is out there. He was the best player on the line.
He's certainly the most significant injury they've had all year. He really is. And there's been other injuries, KVA, I'd rank right up there too, because I just think he was playing so well. But Notre Dame couldn't afford another injury there, and they had one. When you basically are starting three guys in your interior that you didn't think were going to start, that's not a good thing. And I think Notre Dame's offense has struggled because of it, especially short yardage and things like that. But I think it's important to point out, like you did, Sullivan Absher playing better. Otting, you can tell his ankle's getting better, playing better. So I think that they're going to be in good shape.
And Lambert has gotten better throughout the year. Yeah, you can just see
absolutely. And Wagner's been pretty solid run blocker as well. And he's not the biggest dude, but he's done a really nice job. So I like that the O-line is clicking at the right time, and you plug Schrauth in there, and wow, this could be a lot of fun to watch. So I'm getting really excited about it, especially because, look, Notre Dame's got a lot of options at wide receiver right now. They've got a lot of guys who can make plays, and it's not the same guy every week. It's somebody different every week. And you could mix that up and put it around however you want. And then you're starting to see Mike Denbrock, which we've been wanting to see for a while, which is J.D. Price out and pass in the passing game, which we saw in this game, Jeremiah Love out in the passing game. That's when Notre Dame really becomes difficult to defend. And so it's, I think Denbrock's getting more comfortable with what he's got up front and doing more things, but also because, you got to start dialing it up here too. You're not going to be able to just go vanilla against everybody moving forward. That's for sure. So, defensively, I just another really good performance, Jamie. I mean, just really a shutout until the fourth quarter. I mean, you give it a field goal here, a field goal there. But it just really was just a dominant performance. And again, you're missing some key guys. And, the offense is, I think it's just hard when you get up that much to stay focused because nobody's left in the game, and look, it's important to play those young guys. It's important because you never know who's going to have to be plugged in there. You just never know. So I would have loved to see, a number under 10 on the scoreboard for them. I would have loved to see that, but I do think the experience some of those guys got is just as important as a number under 10. I think the big thing for Notre Dame and what Marcus Freeman wanted to do was to show right from the get-go, this team cannot play with us. And they showed that in spades. They absolutely destroyed Stanford. Anyway, thoughts defensively?
Yeah, I think for a guy like Manfermo to get 22 snaps in the game is like really important because we don't know how big of a role that he might have to play, in the next game or the games going forward, right? And also they're one injury away from him having to play even bigger role. Like there's all these kind of things that go along with it. And obviously Madden, he flashed a lot, right? Like he flashed as a pass rusher, right? And also I think it's a good thing when you get Jared Dawson only played 22 snaps. Like that's good. Like like Donovan Hines played 22 snaps. Like those guys don't need to play that many snaps. Like they don't need to play that much, right? Like Devontae Smith, 35 snaps. Like good. You don't need to play these guys as much as that, as much as you want, and I think just even those kind of learning experiences too, where you're getting in like Zachary and Golden in the games. And I know those guys have already played this year too, but it's like just as many of those as possible, because there's going to be a point where we've just seen it where all of a sudden Riley Mills tears his knee and it's like, okay, well now people have to play and you have to play bigger minutes and you have to be ready and guys have to be ready to step up. And that's the one thing that really stood out obviously about last year was they were decimated by injuries, and so many guys over the course of the year who didn't have big roles got better and played and were able to step into and get the job done. Maybe not be outstanding as good as the guys were replacing, but still be like good players. And I think, it's really, really important to get all that, or like to even have like Boubacar Traore plays 33 snaps. Like just not like the guy doesn't need to play more than that. He doesn't need to play more than that. You want to get all these guys reps. I will just say too that I just think like Jason Onye is just playing really, really well. Like that is just continued throughout, like from USC on. It like, you always think when someone has this is the best game of their career. Well, is it a fluke? Is it one of these things? Because like Riley Mills had that one great game against UVA in 2021, and then he wasn't really heard from for a little bit, and it kind of took him a while. And then obviously he made that jump, but it took time. That wasn't like the breakout game for him. I really think like Jason Onye is like built confidence now, where now when you get Rubio back, who was the best defensive tackle on the team before he got hurt.
Oh yeah, no.
And you feel so much better about what they have inside with all of those guys there. Like
especially with Dawson playing well and who's the other guy? 56. Hughes, yeah. So, but yeah, with Onye, and look, he's always been that guy that you could just tell it's probably more of a confidence thing than anything. And I think he's really starting to get it and really come into his own. Hopefully he'll be back next year because I think he has an NFL future. I really do. I think if he can play more consistent, he has enough quickness to be somebody that you really got to worry about and could have a, 7-8 year NFL career, maybe even longer, just depending on, because he does have that kind of quickness and he's got ideal size for what you're looking for an NFL player. So hopefully he can be back and we'll see what happens. Yeah. So you look at the playoff. Is there? Can you think of the best scenario, the best case scenario? I mean, I don't. They're not going to host a game at this point for sure. I hope it's Oklahoma. I think Notre Dame will tattoo Oklahoma. I would love it for being an 8-9 situation where Oklahoma's 8 and Notre Dame's 9. I'd certainly love it to be Notre Dame 8 and Oklahoma 9. That would be even more wonderful. But I mean, I think out of all those teams, I'd probably rather play Oklahoma than anybody, wouldn't you? I mean, obviously maybe James Madison, but it's not. I don't think Notre Dame is going to get to that.
Oh, they're not going to be in that position.
Yeah. So, but who do you want to play at that point? But to me, I would say Oklahoma would be probably the team I'd want to play. Your thoughts here?
I think it's not even close to me because I think when you get down to it, where I mean, any team can beat any of these teams. Like, they're all good teams, right? Like, they're maybe not great teams. Like, even I 100% agree with you on the SEC. It's overrated because the main thing is that Georgia and Alabama aren't Georgia and Alabama anymore. They're not.
They're not.
They're not at that same level. There was like a level of like excellence that they played at that was pretty much unmatched. And they had all of these guys who were like, they had like 4 or 5 first-round picks each year, like playing on their, and they just don't have that. It's not the same right now for them. And it's not to say that maybe they won't, maybe that won't be an annual thing, but that was an annual thing for them. And it's not anymore, right? Like, they're not playing at level, which is why it's wide open. And of course, there's going to be like different things where you look at like different matchups with like, well, this receivers, you don't want to face this guy or that guy and all that stuff. But I just think with Oklahoma, they clearly, out of the teams that you could play, I mean, I would that were in out of the last thing that I think will still be in this matchup. And then obviously Notre Dame was supposed to play them, right? They had them 8-9.
Yeah.
I did see some people project that Notre Dame was going to jump Oklahoma. We'll see. I think they should. Like,
Oklahoma
has not looked good. Like, yes, they got credit for the Alabama
crap. Who's got a good offense in the SEC? I mean, who does? It's not Alabama. It's not Georgia. I mean, Ole Miss probably has the most explosiveness, but who knows where that's going to be, going into this thing. But I just don't see it. I mean, I think Oklahoma would struggle to score more than 10 points against Notre Dame. I really do. I think they would struggle.
They have the worst offense out of anyone, out of like the teams that are regularly they're going to qualify, not like the other teams that we're going to get in because of the conference championship. And their offense, I think just there's such a big gap when you're like a decent offense to being good. And I would say they're decent in that they could play an average team and do okay. But any kind of good defense, they're not going to be able to do it because they can't run the ball. Mateer goes to show too. It's like, the guy was rushing he rushed for 1,000 yards last year at Washington State. Well, that was against like a junk schedule. Now you're playing against real athletes. And it's like, you can't do quite the same things. And not to say he's not a bad athlete or can't make some plays or whatever. He does make some plays, but he makes a ton of dumb throws all the time. He's the quarterback that I think you'd want to play out of all the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Out of every single quarterback there, right? Like,
you can affect him pretty easily. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Their defense is obviously very good. Their defense is very, very good. but you just have to trust that Notre Dame has enough playmakers that, well, they're going to eventually score. They're going to find ways to create explosive plays, and Mike Dambrock will dial some stuff up, and they will score at some point. And Oklahoma, it's like, if they're not getting those turnovers and all that kind of stuff, just like in this LSU game, like that was an ugly game. And so was the Missouri game. And it's not to say those defenses are
LSU is
good.
awful. That's why I think that they're I even think their defense is overrated. I really do. I think it's good. Don't get me wrong. That's a good defense. And, I think that they're going to probably hold a lot of teams to under 35 points, but it wouldn't surprise me if Notre Dame scored 31 on Oklahoma. Really wouldn't. It really would not surprise me, because I think Notre Dame is the best running team that they're going to face out of anybody in the SEC. Notre Dame can run the ball better than anybody in the SEC. There's no doubt in my mind about that. And I think Notre Dame has just as good a passing game, and probably better than a lot of those teams, and certainly a better quarterback than a lot of those teams. I think they're going to be in good situation, but we got to hope that that's what it is. I see some of the customers and the people in chat wanted to know, we don't expect Charles Juggesaw to play. It would be a surprise. That doesn't mean that he won't, but I don't think that they're counting on Charles Juggesaw to play in the playoff. We do believe that Billy Strouth and Tay Johnson and Greathouse and Rubio will all be back. Yeah, they'll all be back for the playoff and everything if Notre Dame gets in. So I just wanted to clarify that. All right. Well, let's get to. I wanted to talk some recruiting just a little bit. We'll certainly have a lot more on Wednesday and thereafter, but. Yeah, we talked before the show. I've been doing a little bit of research about some of the players that I've watched in the senior year, and guys that have really kind of impressed me. And I have not watched everybody, just like Jamie has not watched everybody. So I don't think we have a great understanding at this point of where these commits are going to rank in the Uyeyama rankings in the end. But man, I've watched a lot of these guys, and I'm just really impressed with a lot of them. I think some of them are even better, maybe even considerably better. Like a guy to me, I think Aiden Pouncey is just an extremely talented guy. I mean, I think that we have him too low. I think the whole entire nation has him too low. I think he's a guy that's going to really surprise. I think Ebenezer Utade is another guy who I think is I've been impressed with what I've seen with him. Grayson McHugh, I think he's going to be very, very good. Very excited about him. I like what I've seen with Javian Osborne, Ian Premer, Rodney Dunham. A lot of these guys I think have looked very, very good, and I think this class is going to be better than we say it every year, Jamie. This where it ranks, blah blah blah. We think it's going to be better. Well, this one's going to rank high, and I still think it may be even a little bit better than people think. Because the reason I say that is because I think they have the coaching staff that can develop these players. That's provided they all stay, and let's hope that they do. But I think they have the coaching staff to develop these players. I really like a lot of these guys. I'm just telling you, Aiden Pouncey, look out for that guy. He's going to be really, really good for Notre Dame. I think he's the most underrated player in the class right now. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I will say that just for everyone who's looking out for it, on Wednesday, I will have all updated grades for all the guys in the class. And somebody else asked in the chat about Fab 50. That'll come out in before February, right? Before the class is done. So when all the kind of stuff, all the all-star games and all that kind of stuff is done for that, but there will be updated grades for all of the ND commits. I'll say that I 100% agree with you. I mean, obviously there's guys at the top that are already like, Dunham and all that, like obviously, but Premer is a guy that I think that I probably need to move up even more. He's already a Fab 50 guy for me, but I think he might be the most talented tight end that Notre Dame has signed. Like, I don't want to say ever because they've but in a while, like he is just just a freakish talent,
And
um,
big. And
very
already
big,
big, already
already big.
big. Where you got a guy like Raritan, you had to add some weight to, and this and that, and Raritan is starting to become the player we thought. But yeah, I agree. Ian Premer's very, very good. Go ahead.
And I'll also say that Preston Frizel too, who's I mean the guy that I
Yes.
was already high on, but he's another guy who kind of like backed it up. And I think like if he wasn't in the same class with Premer, he'd be getting a lot more attention. And he's already moved up, I know, with some stuff nationally, but I think he'll just continue. I 100% agree with Aiden Pouncey. That's a guy who's going to move up for me. I have watched him. Ewatade is definitely going to move up for me. Devin Fitzgerald is a guy. I have watched Devin Fitzgerald, and he is going to move up. I think that's just another one of those things where like Notre Dame was like, he obviously made a jump as a junior, and there were things there, and you saw like with 7-on-7 stuff with him that would look really good. But he's a guy I think who really, really looked fantastic in his senior year, and is going to be, better than his ranking in like not just where he ranks like at the end of this, but just like not just moving up right now, but like where he's going to be 3-4 years from now. Like I
Yeah.
think he's and McKeel, yes, 100%. Charlie Tom, another guy, obviously, because there's questions
I
about
haven't
him.
seen it yet. Yeah.
I have
I haven't
watched
seen it yet.
I have
Have you?
watched a little bit of him, and I really think that they made a good bet there. Like, I mean, I'd say he's still obviously inexperienced in a lot of ways, but I think that he's got a chance. Like he's got a real chance. And going through anybody else here, if there's anyone. Oh, Ewatade, who did I don't know
Yeah.
if I mentioned him, but
Yeah, you did.
Ewatade, yeah, Ewatade and Pouncey are like two guys that are like not kind of talked about that
Yeah.
much,
Yeah.
and those guys could be big time studs,
They
big
could be
time
top
studs.
5 guys in the class. I really think both of
Yeah,
them could be. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
it's not to say that like guys like Joey O'Brien and Corey Adams, who I'm like super high on or whatever, but if Aiden Pouncey is a better player than Joey O'Brien, it would not shock me at one bit. It would not shock me
Mhm.
one bit. Like
Me
I
either.
really, really like him, and
And
he
I
is
love Joey O'Brien.
huge. And
Yeah.
like Pouncey is huge. He is a big, big kid.
Yeah. Yeah, he is. It's going to be fun to watch. I'm very, very excited about this class, and again, I like where it's headed. Speaking of which, one thing I didn't point out, I did get to watch Black and Augustine again. Yama, I'm telling you,
They
man,
look good.
those two are
They
going to
look
be good,
good.
man. They're
Yeah,
going to be really good. I'm very excited about both those guys. And
those guys are going to
everybody
push
knows me.
next year.
They are. They're going to push for time, and I feel way better about them after their freshman year than I can remember. Maybe other than Alt, I can't really remember. And I knew Knapp was going to be good because of the way he blocks. I just thought it'd be at guard, but the way things ended up is the way they ended up. But I really like those two. The last few games we've been able to watch, and man, they just move different. They're just a different athlete, and they have the nasty that I love so much in offensive linemen. So that's exciting. All right, Yama, we got a bunch of questions. Before we do, I wanted to get Greg's thoughts on because we haven't had him on as much. Mr. Flamong, first of all, we missed you last week.
I know, man. It was hard, but
I
glad to
mean,
be back.
McCollum's all right and everything, but he's not Flamong. He's not the monger. It's not even close.
That's right.
Of course, I love Christian. Everybody knows that. But
Yeah.
so anyway, last couple games, I haven't really heard. We haven't had you on.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on how they're playing, and then also recruiting. Before we get to some questions.
Well, the recruiting piece is it's interesting because I feel like not only as you're like talking about Aiden Pouncey, I agree with Jamie 100%, but it's like he could be like we're talking about him being better than like the 5-star safety in the class. It's like that's kind of like the caliber of talent that they bring in. I also look at like the way that the current roster is composed as well. Marcus Freeman talks about like, he wants to get out of the portal in some aspects. Notre Dame might be out of the portal at DB for a little bit here.
Yeah.
Just because like of the young guys that they have and the safeties that they have. And now you come in with Kari Adams. Like I kind of believe Kari Adams is going to push for time next year. I think he just kind of has that pedigree, and I think he has that kind of attitude. Between Joey O'Brien and like the physical aspect is there. Between Joey O'Brien and Pouncey, like I really like Chasten Smith. Like I think especially for what Notre Dame wants to do, I think he's really good. And I like Nick Reddish as that like nickel guy as well. So they might be out of the portal for a little bit. The defensive ends, like and then they're losing probably Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, and then you've got Jonas Walton and Javon Osborne coming in. So it just kind of it's all replacing, and it seems like that they're really reloading on that front. As far as the team and the way they're playing, it's interesting to me that on the rewatch, I thought the O-line played better than maybe the numbers kind of indicated.
I agree.
I think the receivers had some trouble getting down to those safeties. Maybe they could have done a little bit better job there because there's a lot of unblocked players. I'm seeing a miscut here just a second ago from Jadarian Price where it's like he could have just walked in the end zone. But like it's interesting. Jamie was talking about the difference at half. Like between Notre Dame and Stanford and Miami and Stanford. Notre Dame's up 35-3 at half, 319 total yards to 90 for Stanford. Notre Dame's averaging 6.9 yards per play, 2.9 yards per play for Stanford, right? Miami had at halftime scored 7-7, not 35-3. Miami had 176 yards of offense to 97 for Stanford. And 4.5 yards per play for Miami to 4 against Stanford. This was when they had just lost to Louisville. They didn't play well. And then you go into halftime at Stanford, and they were losing for most of the half. They needed a 2-minute drive to tie it at 7.
That game was at home too.
Yeah, it's at home, and Stanford's doing the West Coast, the East Coast thing, and then they struggle bust there, and then then the next game they go and lose. So, people wonder why is the committee? It's like, well, you played 3 straight weeks where you didn't play very well, and so that's
lost
the
to
problem.
2 inferior teams.
Yeah, like Miami's doing a lot of we scored late, and it's like now we're posting screenshots. It's like Jamie said, if you watch the games, Miami hadn't been playing very well for the middle part of that season, right? Against teams that aren't that great. When you play 3 straight weeks against teams that aren't very good, you're going to get docked for that. I kind of like that everyone's doing
Sark called out Miami today, by the way, too.
Did he?
Without
Sark?
naming them. Yeah.
Oh,
really?
He said, well, there's a big difference between, you win by this much, and then when it's 31-8 and you're throwing a fade in the end zone and the whatever, well, that is exactly what happened in the Pitt game. He was obviously very specific about the reference. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's interesting that Sark's taking aim at Miami and not Notre Dame in that case, because they see Miami as the vulnerable team there. So I think the committee has always liked Notre Dame. I think they've spoken highly of Notre Dame. I don't think they'll move Notre Dame ahead of Oklahoma. It seems like a step too far. I do wonder, though. I just think here's the thing. I think
why do you say that? Because they did it to Notre Dame. They moved Oklahoma ahead of Notre Dame.
They're not going to do it because they don't need to right now. Because as of now, Notre Dame is in. Here's my opinion. I think the committee wants Notre Dame in. I think they want Notre Dame in. And I'll tell you this.
I agree.
I'll tell you this. Even if Texas Tech loses, BYU beats them, and Alabama wins, I still think they find a way. They're jumping somebody. Jeremiah Love and CJ Carr and Marcus Freeman are going to be in the playoffs. They are going to find a way. I don't know what it is. Have you seen Shakespeare in Love, Jamie. It's a long time.
Yeah.
You know how that saying, it's like, how is it going? It's going to work out. How is it? I don't know. It's a mystery. Like, I don't know how the committee is going to do it. Notre Dame has kicked everyone's butt for 10 weeks. They know Notre Dame is good. Everyone who watches them knows Notre Dame is good. And that's why we get these straw man points about schedule and, week 1, this happened and this, that, and the other thing. None of these people who are advocating against Notre Dame wants to talk about how good they actually are, because everyone knows it. Mm-hmm. I think the committee knows it. I think the committee wants them in. The committee wants Notre Dame in because they know they're good. And the point is to have good teams. And so I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't know in what way they're going to do it. But I just truly believe, even if it breaks against Notre Dame, they are not going to leave Notre Dame out of this playoff. I just don't think they will.
I think you're right. And I think another reason that they're going to be is because Notre Dame also has the best pickleball league. That's what I've heard.
Here's the thing, right? You don't have to talk. We're talking about this on this podcast, but you could talk about it amongst friends in a shared community event and activity. And one of those is pickleball. And you can do that with H2 Pickleball, founded by Notre Dame alum Todd Hill. He's teaming with fellow alums Jack Gibbs and Will House, who's a top 10 pickleball pro, to bring Notre Dame fans to Notre Dame Pickleball Crew League. Besides football, what better way to connect and engage Notre Dame fans than through pickleball? Membership is free, and members will have access to special pickleball events and discounts. For information, contact Todd at h2pickleball.com or call him at 574-339-5195 to join the league. Be sure to visit the H2 Pickleball facility in Mishawaka when you are in town. H2 Pickleball is located at 55801 Evergreen Plaza Drive in Mishawaka, Indiana.
So again, I don't want to. I agree with your point on Oklahoma, that they don't have to jump Notre Dame because they don't need to. Notre Dame's still going to be in it. But to be honest with you, they had no problem with Oklahoma jumping Notre Dame. They had no problem with that. And they did it based off of what?
Well, because they beat Bama.
Well, yeah, but who's Bama now? You know what I mean? That's my point. And so they did it because they thought Bama was this all great team, but now they've lost. What has Notre Dame done since then compared to all these? All they've done is just beat up on everybody, minus Boston College, but beat up on everybody, where Oklahoma the last 2 weeks has looked terrible. They really have. And so, again, I don't think that we have to argue amongst each other, but I hope that Notre Dame fans are also out there saying, hey, why is Oklahoma ranked ahead of Notre Dame? They jumped, if it's okay for Oklahoma to jump Notre Dame, even though they still have the same record and they still did the same things, why is it now not okay for Notre Dame to jump Oklahoma? Because I think even the biggest Notre Dame haters right now would say that Notre Dame would beat Oklahoma. And I bet most Oklahoma fans would believe that Notre Dame would beat Oklahoma if they watched the games. And so, yeah, I think that if you're going to do it, you got to do it now because neither team plays. But like you, Greg, I'm not sure that we'll see it. So, all right.
You want me to make a case for Oklahoma real quick?
No.
Because I could. Okay.
No, I don't. I really don't.
Well, no, I just
suck. There's no case. There is none. They suck.
I truly believe Notre Dame is better than Oklahoma, 100%. But they did go Texas, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Alabama, Missouri, LSU. Now, I don't think Missouri is good. I don't think Tennessee is good, right? LSU's South Carolina is certainly not good. LSU is not good. But it is more difficult than what Notre Dame was doing. I do think that could be a tiebreaker. I do. That's definitely more difficult than Notre Dame.
They played a tough schedule, yeah.
Yeah, they played tougher teams, but they're all like 5 and 6 teams. You know what I mean? They're not great football teams.
To your point, they played tougher teams, and they also won 17-6 and 17-13, and had to come back and beat the corpse that was LSU because LSU didn't cover a receiver.
Yeah, exactly. Ridiculous. All right, we got a lot of questions here. We're trying to get through some of them. first question, with all the coaching changes at big time programs as well as mid-tier programs, how many assistants do you think will lose and which ones are likely? Hopefully none. Hopefully none. Look, there's been a lot of these guys. I mean, a lot of people point to guys like Mike Mickens. I mean, he's been up for jobs many times and interviewed. I will say, I'm sure he'd want to be a defensive coordinator, but there are not too many defensive coordinator positions where I think that they'd make more money than what Mike Mickens is making right now. You're not going to find it at a lot of places. And, I think people would be surprised at how much he's making now. And that's a good thing. And I think Notre Dame stepped up. So, it will be interesting because, Max Bull is another guy that, obviously they got a new situation at Michigan State. I don't think he would leave unless it was for a defensive coordinator position. I don't think that he has enough experience at this point. I do. He's a guy in the very near future that will be somebody that will have that opportunity because I do think he's a very good coach. And, those are probably guys that people will point to, but a lot of these guys have had opportunities and they've stuck around. And, when you look at Notre Dame's situation next year, Jamie, and you look at those first 5 games, Wisconsin, Rice, Michigan State, Purdue, North Carolina, I'm sorry, man. Notre Dame, you can ease guys like Augustine and Black in on those games, and then, Notre Dame is going to be a very difficult team to beat next year. So, does it make more sense for these guys to stick around, and what opportunities would arise after they won a national championship and they show one more year of we're not a fluke, Oh, by the way, I developed all these other players too, besides the ones that we just put in the NFL. So there's a lot of reasons for guys to stick around versus just money and opportunity. All right. This is a good question. Do you think the loss of KVA is outweighed by the return of Shrouth, Tay Johnson, Rubio, and Greathouse in the playoffs? And how do you think the linebackers played in KVA's absence against Stanford? What do you think, Yama?
I mean, I think they played pretty well against Stanford. I think the main thing is that you do notice a difference when they're playing 3 linebackers and Snead is the 3rd linebacker instead of KVA. That's a big drop, especially because of what you're going against in those situations. So I'm not going to act like, everything is totally hunky dory where it's exactly the same. It's not. You're missing out on KVA there, specifically in that kind of thing. So if they play teams that are really can go play heavy and really run the ball that way, that is where we're going to have to see how they're challenged in that way without KVA. In saying that, Georgia was a heavy team last year that did it, and KVA didn't even play linebacker in that game, and they did pretty fine. So it might be a moot point. I mean, I wouldn't say like because it's different. It's not like those guys are playing the same position as KVA, but I think if you were just going to say just getting Tay Johnson and Rubio back is as big as anything for the defense, because I mean, obviously you need Tay Johnson. Like Tay Johnson is like a guy that if they're going to go on a run, Tay Johnson is going to be a significant player. Like he's a playmaker. He's an unbelievable athlete. He's a guy who was exceeded all expectations as a tackler and all of that, and he was getting better. So he could be one of these guys who's like a breakout star in the college football playoff. And Rubio, we already talked about the kind of stuff with the defensive tackle position. Like it just solidifies them so much more there, especially in the inside run game, especially too. And that's another thing. If they want to go heavy, teams want to do that. Like Rubio is different than everybody else, aside from Anye, really, right? Like that they have there. So that is really big. And, we already talked about how important Shrouth is and obviously Greathouse, like Greathouse, I don't know, because any single game, Malachi Fields could be the star. Raridan could be the star. Anyone could be the star. But just having Jaden Greathouse, you've seen him be the best guy on the field against Penn State and against Ohio State in those situations. he's a big game player. Like that is a guy you want to healthy for the. So I don't know if it outweighs it, but I'm telling you, there's not teams that are getting back 4 guys of that significance back for them and healthy that will be ready to play, for the first playoff game. And I don't know if that goes into, what they think about when they're discussing this stuff, but it is 100% going to be a huge boost for Notre Dame.
The thing about Tay Johnson too that I don't think people realize is he has so much speed that he's like having a box safety that can play the middle of the field. I mean, just some of his plays and run support. There's not many players in the entire country who can come up and support the run like he can from the distance that he plays at, and just it's rare to have that. And then you think about all the things that he does on the back end there, and how he impacts. And we've already seen him do so many things in the pass game that I mean, he's such a good tackler, especially this early. I mean, we even remember Xavier Watts, who All-American. I mean, the guy's amazing, but his first year he didn't tackle this well. Adon Schuler did not tackle this well. I mean, this guy's a good football player, and so very, very excited about him. Okay, assuming we sign all the 2026 recruits that are currently committed, do you still think that this is an elite, or do you think this is an elite class? And what does the 2-year look tell you? I'll get into the 2-year look, but I think they've done a very good job of balancing, bringing in, like if they say they didn't have the best O-line class or something, the next year was really good, which is something that Brian Kelly never did. It was never consistent, and Marcus Freeman has fixed a lot of that. So I think, yes, this is an elite class. I think it's very, very good. Very excited about it. If there was anything that I wish, maybe another big time interior defensive lineman, I would have liked that. I do like the linebackers, but I'm not sure that they have a KVA out of that group. But I do think that they have some good players. I think they're going to rectify that in 2027, and I think they got some good guys before that too. So, and I'm not down on the linebackers in this class, don't get me wrong, but I'm just not sure they have a KVA in here. But absolutely love the class. I think it's going to be tremendous. The last question I think is important, and that is basically asking do we think that Grubbs, has he made us feel better about him as a passer and as a quarterback? I still have questions about Noah Grubbs' accuracy and some of his decision making. But I don't think anybody can question whether the guy is a natural born leader. I mean, if you watched where his team was in the spring and at the beginning of the year and where they are now, obviously players get better, but you got to have a good quarterback who can lead as well. And so that's like an encouraging thing, because that's a big, important part of this, is to be the leader. And I think CJ Carr doesn't get the credit he deserves for being the leader. He is already a quarterback. And part of the reason he's a leader is because he goes out and executes it too. And that has given him, credibility amongst his players. And I think with Grubbs, he has done that and done a good job. I still have some questions about overall accuracy and some of his decision making. I do like that he's gutsy. He'll take more chances. I like that. And, that's what CJ Carr is, and that's a good thing sometimes, but it's also a bad thing sometimes too. And so that's really my only thoughts there on Grubbs. What have you seen, Jamie?
I mean, I really think he always has impressed me, even more so too, like, what he's done as a senior. Just like, he's a tough kid. Like, he's a very tough kid. He's a guy that, like, you can see, like, he's gonna, like, lay it out on the line, and he's certainly not afraid to, like, stick in the pocket and just get wrecked to make a throw and all that. And I think he's someone that there's a lot of good traits about him, and that's why he's like that's why he's a 4-star kid. Like, that's why he's there. But the thing is, to me, because he doesn't have, and I know CJ Carr is not a great runner, right? But and I think Grubbs has gotten better at like escaping and being a little bit more mobile and all that. But he's not going to offer you anything as a runner, like probably less than Carr would even. And when you add in that, then he doesn't have the accuracy there, and that is a big thing, because that is truly what makes CJ Carr elite. Is like, yes, he can throw the deep ball, but his accuracy in just like the short game. And think of how many times Notre Dame throws short of the sticks, and the guy gets yards after catch after, and gets the first down because of how accurate, because CJ Carr puts it right on the guy.
Yeah.
And that matters. It really does,
Huge.
especially when you don't add in that extra part about the running and all that stuff too. So can that get better? Sometimes it does. Not often though. So that is the big question. And that is the thing kind of holding him back. And I would say pretty much like if he had that, he'd be rated higher. He would have went to Elite 11. He would have done that. That's because why he didn't go to Elite 11, because it's like, you go to those camps and it's like they examine every throw and all that. And it's like, if you're missing too much, you're not going to make it. Right. So I think one of these things is like, you wish they got a guy who was a level up from him as a quarterback. And I'm just not knocking him. That's just the facts. You wish they got that, because that would have just put the class, I think, into a different stratosphere. Because I truly think, like, if you look at everything else, like, they really just hit on the numbers where they needed to. And if you followed up, like, say, like, like Makio and Tom, who I think, like, both those guys have really good chance to be developing good players, and they're following up Augustine and Black and all that. It's like, now you're cooking with gas. Like, you have all these kind of pieces there where, you're excited about it. So, I really, really like the D-line class too. I think the D-line class is great.
It is. And back to Grubbs. I mean, I think one thing that probably mentioned in his defense is this guy has been under fire. I mean, he has handled pressure because he has had it. And that's the one thing, if people remember, that's the one thing that I like the most about CJ Carr is you knew just by watching him. I mean, that guy just had constant pressure and can make things. And you can go all the way back to Jimmy Clausen. And I remember telling everybody, look, I think Jimmy Clausen has all the tools to be amazing, but guess what? Nobody ever gets within 5 feet of him. Nobody's ever anywhere near him when he throws the football. So how do you really know how good Jimmy Clausen is? Because that's not what he's going to see when he gets to college. I loved everything I like about Jimmy, and Jimmy was also extremely accurate as a quarterback. So, but guess what? As soon as the bullets started flying and Clausen had to figure out how to maneuver in the pocket, he just wasn't very good at it. And that made a big difference. With Grubbs, he has had to deal with that certainly the last 2 years for sure. And when you show that you can make plays doing that, that's a big positive. But I agree with you. The accuracy thing is the one thing for me. And I couldn't be more in agreement with you on CJ Carr and his accuracy. I mean, how many times on 2nd and 6 does he just throw the perfect ball? And look, when you can convert on 2nd down, you don't have to worry about 3rd down, and you don't have to worry about 4th down. And he's also very clutch on 3rd down too. He is very clutch at moving the chains, and that's just a rare quality, and that's why the guy is going to be very, very good in the future. Jamie, they want to know about the love ribs thing. Do you think that was intentional? I saw you made some comments on it. What do you think?
I think it was intentional. I watched it enough to, first I don't want to like paint the picture of that for someone in, the first time I see it, just because I hope that someone doesn't do that. But there's no other reason why anyone, it wasn't like he was running into, no one runs into a tackle like that. Mm-hmm. And it was, it was very specific. Not to say that kind of thing doesn't happen all the time. It does, where guys do that. Maybe not that specifically, but like they're going to lean on guys extra. They're going to do all this stuff. There's obviously Stanford always twisting ankles and stuff in piles. That's a Stanford thing. That's a Harbaugh old school like that. They've been doing that for over a decade, right? So that's not something. Stanford quietly one of the dirtiest teams out there for 15 years. But
yeah,
that I mean, it was a dirty play. Hey, I've seen, Maris Leofau, he broke Travion Henderson's ribs a couple years ago with a late hit. So I don't want to just say like it doesn't happen. Notre Dame hasn't had something like that.
Yeah.
But it was something there. Luckily, it's just bruised ribs. And, he should be fine in a few weeks. So, yeah.
I probably shouldn't even comment on this because it really doesn't matter. But doesn't it seem weird how much power they're giving Andrew Luck? I mean, you would have thought he was the coach on the sideline. I mean, you would have thought that he was the guy. And I realized that, but to me, I just don't think that anybody, especially somebody as inexperienced as Andrew Luck is, should have that kind of power. It just seems very weird. But maybe it'll work out for him. And I know he's beloved, and that's a big important thing, especially when you need donors to give you money. And so I think that that's good to have him as the face out there, especially right now when things are. But I don't know. He seemed to be very much enjoying his status there too, and so it's going to be interesting to see how that experiment all works out moving forward. All right, a guy wanted to know why the Stanford the pass rush, the defense, and it seems slower, and the pass rush not as effective compared to Pitt and Syracuse games. Well, I don't think they did near as much in the game. I don't think they were near as aggressive, but they didn't need to. So why? So I think that says as much as anything. I just don't think that they felt like they had to be aggressive to do the things, and why do it if you don't have to? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, they were not doing anything exotic in terms of what they were running pressure wise, like compared to what they've done in recent weeks. And I'll say this too, that there are a lot of this game too. Elijah Brown, like, rather than try to like escape pressure, he was just like throwing it, like no matter what. And that's why he completed less than 50% of his passes, right? Like, that's why he threw that pick to Moore. Like, there's just no reason that he should have thrown that ball. That's also why he's probably he was targeting Leonard Moore. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Like,
it's not smart. Yeah.
There's a lot of like, he was just trying to get rid of the ball a lot of times. So I think there was a lot of times where I was like, oh, a guy won clean, and it was like balls out. Like, and I was like, that wasn't even a good decision. It was just like balls out. Yeah.
Yep. This is a good question by Bronx here. With a full season in the books, what has most impressed you about CJ Carr, and where does he need to improve the most? We've talked a lot about what's impressed me and you. Again, I just think his accuracy, his command in the pocket, his ability to handle the blitz for such a young quarterback who has very little, experience. His toughness. He's a tough kid. I mean, he got beat up pretty good early, and they've protected him a lot better now, but he still takes a good hit. I love his confidence. I love his confidence in his ability. I love his leadership. If there's anything that I think he probably needs to work on, if I could say of anything, it would be when something bad happens, don't continue to think about it. I think sometimes when something bad happens, it tends to linger in his head a little bit. And that's because he's a perfectionist, and if you listen to anybody talk about him from the moment he been on campus, nobody's put in more effort than this kid. He wants to be great. And so I do think that that's the one thing that Gino and Denbrock will have to kind of help him through a little bit, but I think he's even getting better at that. And so I'll tell you this, I really can't think of anybody I'd trade CJ Carr for. I really don't. I really don't think I could name a single quarterback I'd trade him for right now, especially considering he has years left after this, So, I don't know. Anything you want to add, Jamie?
Yeah, well, just Greg and I talked about it yesterday as well on the, the morning after show, that his ability to just check into the right play at the right time, his ability to check protections. Just think about how many times that he's checked into a run when it's like 3rd and long and they've converted. And he's the guy making that checks. It's not like check with me all the time on the sidelines. He's looking over, like he is making that check. And also too, like, that's just like one of those things. It's like an unselfish thing. It's like, you're doing this because this is the numbers. Like, you're not throwing the ball here. You're doing that. And I think, where maybe like at the beginning of the year, you saw like, maybe should have just handed it off on some of those RPOs, right? But it's, he pulled it, and it's like he was maybe trying to do too much. And I think I totally agree with you. His thing about like in that USC game, I think in particular, was like he was on tilt a bit and he never quite got out of it. And I think, there's going to be more adversity in any kind of CFP game than he's ever faced since like the beginning of the season. But I thought, he handled it so well in that Texas A&M game that really just stood out to me. And obviously he's a better player now than he was then.
Sure.
So he's just incredibly impressive, first year as awesome year.
I think he's got to work on the deep ball a little bit. He has a lot of overthrows.
He does. I'd rather go over than under. I'd rather he overthrow it than under. But
either way, I mean, I just like what was the game where Malachi Fields was running by himself? What game was that? He just completely missed it. What was?
Yeah.
Like he missed Pauling on the one against Boise State. He's missed a few fade balls to Pauling where it's too far. It's just,
I'd say the fade's definitely something he needs to work on.
It's like a nitpicky thing. I mean, you guys touched on the other stuff. I just wanted to like a physical thing.
I can see an argument for that, and maybe because they've been so poor at the deep ball for so long that when they complete anything that we're excited about it,
he's not bad. He could have had like a truly special deep ball season if he would just half of the ones I'm talking about he hits on. And then the guys are open. So that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I would say that's fair. Last question for you guys. The guy wants to know who we feel is the worst matchup for Notre Dame in the first round, and who would give you the toughest game, and I want to put that throughout the playoff, right? So let's just say the first matchup. I don't know. I'm not scared to play any of those teams that they'd have to face. I maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. I can't think of anybody. The second round game I think could be certainly much more challenging for Notre Dame, especially if they end in the 8-9 area. That second game certainly is going to be difficult, and even if they move up or go down, and the second game is probably going to be more difficult for me. I don't know, because I just haven't seen Indiana enough against a quality opponent. But I will say they play the best as a team out of all the teams that I've watched. But they're also not playing good competition either. But as a team, I think that they may be more difficult to beat than a lot of other teams, because they're probably not going to make a lot of mistakes, and so you're just going to have to beat a man up. You're just going to have to out physical them and out athlete them, and they got some good players. They have some good players on that team, and so to me, I think Indiana may even be more scary than Ohio State. I think Ohio State has more skilled talent, but I'm not sure that they believe as much as Indiana believes in themselves right now. And to me, the belief in oneself, especially in these big, tight games, I think is a big, big thing. And I think Indiana's going to prove to be a very tough out. Having said that, we'll wait and see how they look this weekend. But, I don't know. Clearly for me, I think that Ohio State and Indiana are the two teams that I think are going to be the most difficult to beat in the end. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm really interested to see actually that Big Ten championship game and see how that kind of like matches up, because I want to see how Indiana matches up there. But I mean, right now for me, I think if you look at like where Notre Dame is in that like 9 slot where they would win that game. They have to play the 1. And if it's Ohio State, like, I mean, I guess at some point you're going to have to play them anyways, but
Sure.
I would hope that is the team that you hope somebody else beats before you play them, to me. That just because
no doubt.
I just
they have
think,
the
like,
most talent. Yeah.
I don't think, like you said, Mike, I totally agree with you. I don't think they have the same level. Like, they don't have the same backs as last year. I don't think the O-line is as good. You know, there's these things there that aren't as good for them, but I just think Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith, and even if you think about it, like, they're Innis, like, and also they have guys who are like their 4th, 5th guys, are like guys who can just make a play and all of a sudden make like a 30-yard reception out of nowhere, right? Like, you just have to play at such a high level the whole time against that, and that is something where pass rush, they have to just, you have to dominate that team up front, or else you're not gonna like. I think as good as Leonard Moore is, I think Leonard Moore will be fine, but Christian Gray in those type of opponents, it's a prove me thing until we see it.
I agree, and I think that's a difficult team to cover. There's no question about it. And if we even go back to last year's game, it was a couple very high draft pick running backs that made it difficult, and then probably the best receiver in the entire country that made winning difficult in that game. But I also think that Notre Dame's Ohio State is their offensive line is really what won the game for them, because they were able to run the ball in a way that nobody had been able to. Now, because you don't have Riley Mills and you got a banged up Howard Cross, and it just wasn't the same situation. Had Notre Dame had those guys healthy and ready to go and doing, maybe that would have been different. But I'm just not sold that their offensive line is where they are. But guess what? I wasn't sold that they were last year either going into this. I saw them improving. And as the playoff went on, you saw them improving. But they weren't even that, most of the year, their offensive line. I mean, even before they got some of their key guys hurt, they were good, but not great. So I think we'll have to see what happens and go from there. All right. That's going to be it, folks. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. We'll be back next week. We'll talk recruiting. We'll talk, we won't have the actual official stuff in place as far as where Notre Dame will play, but we'll certainly talk about the playoff and what all that means, and hopefully some Heisman stuff, all that good stuff, and we'll answer your questions as well. So that's going to be it, folks. Thanks for listening. We will talk to you next week on Power Hour.